This city was nothing but a few villages before the discovery of coal. This is Komló and hundreds of years of history.
Some towns rise with a vision. Komló rose with a shovel. Tucked into the hills of Baranya, this is Komló.
So this is my first time here in Komló and I am mind blown. I didn't expect it to be that big. I mean the town. And wow, it was beautiful. I was driving from Page, which is the other side of the Mechik, and driving here I saw beautiful landscape, beautiful mines. And when I arrived here to Komló, which is a town at the size of 25,000 people, I saw two parts of it. You have the upper part of Komló, and then you have the valley where you have a lot of the mining going on. So first time here, let's check it out.
A mining town that didn't sleep, just shifted. Thousands came here from villages you never heard of, lured underground by the promise of a better life, or at least a paid one. Coal built the streets, coal fed the families, coal kept the lights on until it didn't. Now the mines are closed, the elevators don't run, but Komló's still here, quiet, cracked and stubborn.
You definitely have a lot of pánylakos, the big Soviet-style housing projects. And actually we are going to a place later where they built a lot of these housing for all the mine workers in the coal mines. And the sad thing is when the coal mining stopped, a lot of the people left because there was no jobs here. And it stopped at the time of withdrawal. So when Hungary got its independence again. History has its ways. I will say, Komló looks pretty nice. It looks a bit rough, but you have a lot of these nice community areas with the Városháza being here, the city hall, and lots of small restaurants, small cafes. And you know, Komló doesn't really have any lake, it doesn't have a river, and it's not the tourist magnet you would ever expect. But in the end, Komló has a deep history and mines.
Every town has a center. Komló's just took a bit longer to find its heart. Built not around a cathedral or a castle, but at a bus stop, a department store, and a strangely optimistic fountain. Locals gather here, teens with speakers, pensioners with nowhere else to be. It's less about where you are and more about who hasn't left. This is Komló's Agora. It's a square without statues, no grandeur, no gloss.
Actually, Komló was sometimes called the socialist dream town. You had free housing, you had sports clubs, you had community places. A lot of people would say this was a picture-perfect propaganda town. I would say Komló has much more than that. And today it still stands very strong.
In Komló you will still find plenty of shops, mostly clothing shops. And mostly for women.
And it really looks like the people here of Komló, they have lots of shopping options. You can buy a lot of clothing, mostly women's clothing. But maybe there are more women here in Komló than men. Which is good for the men here. Let's test some ice cream from Komló. This is lemon and lavender. Excellent, wow. So hot today, wow. Every year in the summer, I forget Hungary gets so hot.
The mines closed in the 90s, but what happens when your whole identity is built underground? Some left, some drank, some stayed.
So very fascinating. When you build a coal mine like you had here in Komló, you will always have some casualties. Well, sadly you will always have. And here is a memorial for a lot of the casualties. Like for example, we have singer János II. We have Vice Joseph in the 50s. We have Molnár Joseph, maybe they were family, who knows. We have Szorcs Lajos. We have Pogyes Béla. All the way up to 97, we have some victims. And yeah, it just shows that this kind of work was not for the weak.
Komló was never meant to be beautiful. It was meant to be useful. In the 1950s, it exploded, not literally, though some shafts came close. Housing projects sprung up like mushrooms. Engineers, miners, party men, they came by the trainload. The joke was, Komló doesn't have a center, it has a purpose.
Of course, Komló is a major hub for the Magic Mountains, which it's surrounded by. You will have a huge bus station like here and an old train station. So let's see where we can go from here. I can see somewhere we can get to Sást, Kaposvár. Wow, Kaposvár is also a big city close by. And you can also get to, what do we have here? Dombóvár.
Historically, Komló have always been a hub for transportation around the region.
So not to say that it's a beautiful town, it is livable, I would say.
People scoff at panel buildings, call them grey, soulless, but here, each block holds 100 stories. If these walls could talk, they'd smoke a cigarette first and then tell you about Istvan from 4th floor and his legendary stew. Even the saints wore helmets here. Saint Borbala, patron saint of miners, watches over Komló from her stark concrete church. The Saint Borbala Temple was built in 1937.
So this church, at the end of Komló, we have this church, which is the Temple of Saint Barbara. And you might ask, who is Saint Barbara? So because Komló is a mining town, it is the mining saint. So a religious figure here for a mining town, Saint Barbara. And it looks very particular. Looks very special.
She was their last hope, their quiet prayer before the descent. You wouldn't think a mining town would have culture, but then again, miners had stories to tell too. Komló once had theaters, music halls, poetry readings in smoky rooms. The spirit of rebellion brewed here, sometimes on stage, sometimes just in 2 honest folk songs. So I just went into this community house and they have concerts every weekend. How amazing is that? I mean, I come from a small town in Denmark and we don't have concerts every weekend. So let's see who's playing here. We have the likes of Blues Megalo, we have Apoin Guchan, Veri Take. Some very interesting bands here coming to Komló. Komló won't be Budapest, won't be Page, and that's fine. Maybe its future isn't in coal or culture or concrete. Maybe it's in remembering and letting others remember too. There are bike paths now, murals, art shows, and still that silence that never really left. Now it's time to try some amazing food from Komló, from Magic Bistro. Here is a magyaros kafió leves. And that was very tasty and very Hungarian indeed. In Hungary they have a tradition of daily menus where you for a low fee pay and get 2 dishes, normally a soup and a main dish. And here I had the classic rántott, so the fried cheese. Also really amazing.
We just had food at Magic Bistro. It was amazing. But over here on the other side, we have the big power plant that's delivering power to the whole city of Komló. I don't know, it's in the middle of the city. It doesn't look that beautiful, but yeah, it gives a vibe to Komló, I guess.
Tucked behind apartment blocks and concrete nostalgia, there's a place where Komló still remembers how to trade without blinking. The little market. It's not pretty, it's not curated, it's not trying to be a farmer's market in Paris. This is the real Komló style. If you would come at the right time, Komló also has a big market where you can buy fresh produce from all around the region here in Mecek and Baranya. And you will see all the small Hungarian babushkas standing and selling their goods. Sadly, I didn't come at the right time. Komló has its way, the same with Hungary, and everybody may not understand it. Komló isn't just Komló, it used to be Hoshmine. Hoshmine was a separate world, a little hillside village that mines devoured, then forgot. We have to go back many years before Komló was a town.
there was a little mining village here called the Hush Mine. And the only remainings we have of them now is this temple, this church, Catholic church, I believe, that is hidden away between houses nowadays, but you can still go here and find it. And they had churches, they had mines, of course, they had a lot of stuff. Now they're not here. Now we have Komló, and who knows what's gonna happen in 500 years, who's gonna live here then. But very fascinating.
It still has a church, still holds Sunday Mass, but the choir's quieter, and the kids don't stay. They actually never show up. If Komló was a mining giant, then Cornelius was its heart, pumping shift workers in and out, day and night, under the watchful eye of socialist realism. Komló isn't dying, it's just not loud anymore. You won't see it in guidebooks, no influencers coming here, but maybe that's the point. Some places are meant to shine, others they smolder.
Thank you so much for watching this video about Komló. What an amazing little hidden gem in the Mechik Mountains. I'm so happy you watched this video. Please leave a like, comment where I should go next, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It would help a lot. Vi så lauter.